It's date night. They say a way to someone's heart is through their stomach. It definitely worked for my husband. So I created the perfect menu to win hearts over. Let's make it. Steak and peppercorn sauce. You've probably seen it on the menus in the restaurants. It packs full of flavor. It's a classic French sauce and it's surprisingly easy to make at home. We are going to be setting the standard for date nights at home. Why am I doing it with steak? Well, it matches with the meatiness of the steak so well and it is my personal favorite at the moment. So let's make it. Forget my husband, I've got a hunky piece of meat right here, a ribeye. It's got the cap and bone removed, so it's just the prime eye. However, it's strung up like a roasting joint, whereas I want to cook this hard and fast, like a steak. So I'll remove the string and flatten the meat to cook it more evenly. You heard me, I'm going to pound that meat and then I'm going to season it well, but only with salt, not pepper. This is going to impart a lot of flavour into the meat before I cook it. Then I'll brush off any excess salt just before cooking. And I'll just leave this at room temperature while I prepare the rest. For the sauce, I've got some brunoise shallots and garlic, brunoise meaning finely diced. Now for the main ingredient, the peppercorns. I've got a mixture here of green and black, but you could also use pink. I don't recommend Szechuan peppercorns unless you want that numbing feeling, but I don't really think that suits this sauce. And you know me, I'm going to give my peppercorns a good old pounding in my pestle and mortar. This is going to release their flavour and also grind them a bit finer. Now I'm ready to cook. The meat goes into a searing hot pan. I'm going to press it down lightly with my chef's press. This helps the meat cook evenly. Don't be tempted to add a lot of oil into the pan. There's going to be a lot of fat rendered from that steak. Just look at that beautiful even crust. So it's ready to flip over and sear the other side. You can find details on the chef's press in the description below. Now it's time to flavour the meat. I'm going to add in butter and give it a basting. Now I'm going to turn the heat down so I don't burn that butter. The steak has got a wonderful crust to it, but the inside's going to be pretty blue or rare. So I'm going to pop it into an oven just to finish cooking through around 150 degrees centigrade or 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Right, so your meat is in the oven. Now it's time for the saucy bit. Now I'm not talking about the date itself. It's the peppercorn sauce. Right, we've got our shallots and garlic, and you're gonna take the pan that you used for cooking the steak, and we're going to cook the shallots and garlic in that pan. The pan is on a low heat because we're just going to gently sweat the garlic and shallots and constantly keep it moving. I'll just add a little touch of oil to help this sweat a bit more, but only just a tiny bit. Next goes our ground peppercorn, and I'm gonna stir this really well. It's important that you keep the temperature of the pan nice and low and controlled while you're cooking this part. Burning the peppercorns means you'll get this acrid flavour in your sauce, so I'd start again. Trying really hard not to sneeze right now. I'm keeping this on a really low temperature because I don't want the peppercorns to burn, but I do want to release some of that aroma, that flavour from the peppercorns. It's got the wonderful heat to it. And a lot of people use peppercorns, they think of it as just like a little seasoning, but it's such a wonderful, very complex ingredient, so we're going to treat it with that respect. Now, next up is for the sexy part, and I'm not talking about what happens after date night, it's the flambé. Now, I'm going to be using brandy, that's what is very traditional. You can substitute it for cognac or whiskey. Let's go for the classic one. Brandy is made from fermented fruit juice or wine, so it's like a sweet and floral party in your mouth. But to flambe means we're going to burn off the alcohol, but leaving behind that wonderful flavour. If you don't have access to a gas stove, you can use a lighter, but tilt it away from you because you don't want to lose your eyebrow in the process. Give it a gentle shake and stir until all of that alcohol is burnt off. Again, keep this on a low temperature. This is looking perfect. Next up, I'm going to be adding beef stock or beef stew. I've always got some beef stew in my fridge freezer because it's so handy to have whenever I want to make sauces like this. I'm going to stir it really well to make sure all those peppercorns and shallots are broken up into that stew. Just observe the consistency of the sauce right now. It's very loose. Now this is a technique that us chefs use when we're making sauces, is just teasing the sauce and trying to gauge the consistency, because all good sauces have a rich consistency. But what I mean by that is when I'm parting the sauce, it should leave a nice even coating on the spoon. You can add as much or as little of the cream as you'd like. I personally don't like a very creamy sauce because I find most of the time when I have it in a restaurant, it's too watery and you lose a lot of that depth and complexity of the peppercorns. So the aim here is to have it on a gentle rolling heat. You see the bubbles on the side here? They're just gently bubbling away. That means it's reducing until it's a rich, thick consistency. Now this is completely optional, but I'm going to add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard and a good old dash of Worcestershire sauce. This is going to give it a good old kick of umami, and I'm just going to gently whisk it in. So how do I know when the sauce is ready? Well, the consistency I'm looking for is it coats the back of a spoon nice and evenly. And mainly, it tastes wonderful. Just look at this sauce here. I know this sauce is going to coat that meat so wonderfully. Now I'm going to pass the sauce. That's right, pass it. Not particularly traditional, you don't have to do it. Here I'm removing the ground peppercorns and shallots and garlic. But why, I hear you ask, why go through all that effort when the sauce is already delicious? Well, for me, I've taken away all the flavour from the ground peppercorns, shallots and garlic I need from the sauce, but I don't want the texture of it on my plate. Sometimes I think it could take away from the meat itself. But the main thing is I've got that lovely flavour extracted already. We'll practice for later. Don't include that. Oh, Liz. So the sauce is done. Time to plate up. Now I'm super happy with the consistency of that. Now I have passed all the peppercorn and the garlics out, but I've got these wonderful green peppercorns in brine, which I love having in the sauce because they pop in your mouth and into the sauce it'll go. And you'll notice I'm adding in a knob of cold butter. This is another trick us chefs use when we're making sauces. It basically adds this shininess and richness to the sauce. And I'll just gently whisk that in. This has hit a perfect temperature inside. I took it out at about 45, 47 degrees centigrade, and now it's ready to cut. So I'm just gonna cut against the grain. And because it's a ribeye, wow, that looks amazing. Because it's a ribeye, I'm gonna slice this fairly thin, and you can see there's a lot of that fat and a little bit of sinew running through the meat. You can just cut this out. Or if you like the flavour of it, you can keep it in. But this is exactly what I was looking for. It's just cutting like butter. Now it's time to get your salt bay on. I'm going to season it a little bit more with some fine sea salt, not table salt. And I'm just going to gently massage it into the meat. Now it's ready to plate. I personally don't like ribeye too rare because I want that fat to be rendered down a little bit more, and purely a textural thing. Right, I'll pop it all onto the platter. Then I'm going to take these nice juicy middle bits of the plate. There. So the sauce, you can make it up ahead and have that ready to go. And like I say, heat up that sauce nice and hot, and then the rest of the dish will be complete. Let's finish plating up. Make sure I get some of those peppercorns on there. I love taking a sneaky peek of the dinner. That's the best bit about being the cook. Really happy with the consistency of that sauce. You can have more cream in there if you like it a bit lighter, a bit creamier. But for me, this is the perfect balance of creaminess, pepperiness, heat, but then it's got that umami and the meatiness from that beef. To get my date, I think I'll be happy with just this plate of meat.
Whoa. It's time for me to have a go. What are you on about?
Nah.
Day night's still on.
No. I think I'm happy with just this.
Maybe I should give it a little taste test. No cutlery.
Get colory then. Haven't set the table, have you?
Check out this sauce. Does look pretty good. And that's a solid 7. It's a solid 10.
We're also going to have it with some chips and asparagus.
It's amazing.
There's a reason I keep you behind the camera. Well, if you liked this episode, give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week for more date ideas.
I'm taking this with me.
Well, I get this then.